Greetings and salutations. Once again, we find ourselves here at the noonday hour to praise and petition the God in whom we all believe and the God who we recognize can provide a solution to any and all of our particular concerns. Once again, I bring you greetings on behalf of our president, that being the president of the National Alumni Association, Mr. Jerry Redmond, as well as the president of the university, Dr. Gerald Briggs. And of course, my name is Reverend Anthony J. Brownlow, and I am the national chaplain for the Alumni Association. Uh, Last week, we had a conversation in and around your special. And the supporting text for that particular theme was Exodus, the first chapter, verses 8 through 12. You're special. Well, this week we'll be having a conversation in and around grace. And the supporting text for this particular theme is Isaiah, the 30th chapter, verses 18 through 13. 18 through 19. Again, grace as the theme and the supporting text, Isaiah, the 30th chapter, verses 18 through 19. And the text reads as follows. Therefore, the Lord will wait, that he may be gracious to you, and therefore he will be exalted, that he may have mercy on you. For the Lord is a God of justice. Blessed are all those who wait for him. For the people shall dwell in Zion at Jerusalem. You shall weep no more. He will be very gracious to you at the sound of your cry. When he hears it, he will answer you. Again, let's read those verses again. The 18th verse. Therefore, the Lord will wait, that he may be gracious to you, and therefore he will be exalted, that he may have mercy on you. For the Lord is a God of justice. Blessed are all those who wait for him. For the people shall dwell in Zion at Jerusalem. You shall weep no more. He will be very gracious to you at the sound of your cry. When he hears it, he will answer you. Again, grace is our supporting text or our theme this week. And I would like to convey in this moment that I've been having a number of conversations in and around grace with friends and some random folk just randomly out and about. And, God put it on my heart to visit this particular theme in this moment in time. And so, what is very interesting about what transpires in the 30th chapter, now we focus on verses 18 and 19, but in your leisure, I would encourage you to go back and read the full chapter, in particular, starting out with verses 1 through 17. And what is clear through the first 17 verses is that God has a problem with this particular community. There is no, I guess one could clearly not be confused that God has a serious problem with this community who God has identified as special and sacred. And so, some of the language that is transpiring, it is as if these folk have done some things that they shouldn't have done, have subscribed to some practices that they shouldn't be subscribing to. God is extremely upset with these folks in whom God has identified. In the first 17 verses, it is clear that this is a problematic situation, and God is frustrated and irritated by this community. And so, to support my position on this, I will share some of the terms in the first 17 verses that God uses in his communication with this community: rebellious, iniquity, ruthless, collapse, threatening, trouble, shame, disgrace, sin, worthless, empty, faithless, uh, reject, deceit, oppression, and illusions. All of these are terms that are utilized in the first 17 verses of this particular text, or the 30th chapter of the book of Isaiah. But what is very interesting to me is it is as almost as if God hit a reset at verse 18. And it is almost like God had an awakening that God was who God is, and these people were who God saw or thought them to be. And that is sacred and significant to him. Because all of a sudden, there's this transition where terms like wait, be gracious, justice, blessed, hear, and mercy show up, which are totally opposite of those particular terms that we described with initially in the first 17 verses. It's something about something happens in the 18th and the 19th verse and a few verses thereafter. But I wanted to just focus on 18 and 19. And so it is almost as if God comes to this revelation about what these people mean to them, what these people mean to him or God, and how significant they are. And so it was as if God pumped the brakes and decided to offer these folks who had gone against all of what God had asked them to go against. And it's as if God offered them some grace in the midst of this moment. And that's what I want to form our conversation about today. I'd like to ask you, and to ask me in the same breath, when things are not going right, when we find ourselves in foreign territory, making mistakes, what are we saying to ourselves? Uh, are we, taking the position of looking at ourselves in the worst way because we've made mistakes, because we are not subscribing to what we would identify as moral or righteous behavior? What are we saying to ourselves when we find ourselves outside of the will of God and operating in spaces that we know we probably shouldn't be operating in? That's something, I think we need to ponder, because we can be of detriment to ourselves. I know you can hear consistently in, contemporary language, people will throw out the term hater, 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 hater. But sometimes if we look closely within ourselves, we are our own hater by the things that we say to ourselves. And so, maybe in those moments, maybe those are ideal times to offer ourselves some grace. Um, some grace that, hey, we're human. Some grace because, hey, we just may be having or operating in a bad season where, we're off kilter. Some grace, again, because we are human. And so, that's the message I want to, highlight, illuminate in this short time that we're together. If God, in God's richness in God's grace, in God's mercy, can provide some grace for those folks, we ought to be able to offer some grace to ourselves, right? Because we are operating in the human condition. And because we're operating in the human condition, there's a good chance we're going to do some human kind of things. And that is, we're going to have some shortfalls here and there. And so that's what I wanted to put before you as a reminder, just to offer yourself some grace, even when it's not your best season, even when you're not batting 1,000, even when you're not even batting 500, you know, offer yourself some grace, as well as the folk you're interacting with too, because they're human as well. And they might need some grace too, because you might not have the backstory on what's going on with them. Uh, that being said, let us prepare our hearts and minds for a word of prayer. God, we are so grateful that you have provided this item of grace and mercy. Uh, Despite our shortfalls, despite those seasons when our humanity shows up and we fall short, Lord, your grace and mercy shows up in and around us. And God, we're grateful. And Lord, even in the moments, Lord, um, when we are not graceful or when we're not graceful towards ourselves, Lord, uh, you'll send someone, or we're thankful that you've sent someone before us to remind us that we should offer ourselves some grace and not be so hard and so taxing on ourselves. And here in this moment, God, that's what we want to illuminate. That's what we want to lift. Uh, that we, always be mindful that we're connected to you, that you're special, or that we're special in your eyesight. And because of that, we need this thing called grace. Lord, there are those who are in a funny season in this very hour, and they have no answers to the questions that are being presented to them. They are frustrated, and the language that is showing up in their cognitive centers is not favorable language. Lord, walk with them in this very hour. Remind them that you were very detailed and meticulous when you formed each one of us. And so remind them that even though they may feel like there is no good in their existence in this very moment, that because you shaped us, because you shaped and crafted us in your image, God, there is a lot of good in us. And that the love that creeps up out of heaven rains down on our respective spirits. Lord, in this same vein, we ask, because this is a National Alumni Call, we ask that you be on the campus of our university in the same season that we've had a shooting at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. We ask, Lord, that you be there at our particular campus, but Lord, that you be with the victim's family as well as the individual who performed that particular act, that you park your presence with those folk in that community as well. God, in the same vein, we ask, Lord, that you provide protection around those folk who are in the path of the hurricane. Uh, and in the same vein, God, we ask that you go out to the island of Hawaii and you be a support system and peace for those who have been affected by the fires in Maui. Lord, again, we are always grateful to have these moments where we can pause and park and focus our attention on you, knowing and recognizing that you, for us to walk in the land, that you must be relevant in our walk. And so, God, we bless you in this moment. We ask that you have a watchful eye over all those who are currently on the call, those who will view the call later. We ask that you bless their particular households, the spaces that they operate in, bless their endeavors that are in alignment with your will for our lives, and keep and continue to guide each one of us in this season that we operate in. God, we lift up these words of praise and petition in your name. Amen. Once again, it has been a blessing to be in this space with each of you. And as we bring this call to a close, we ask that you continue to remember to ask, seek, and to knock. That the God we serve is not in the business of having a deaf ear to pick your particular cry or concern. Once again, we look forward to seeing you right back here at the same time in the same place to pause and reflect on the God who we know is a awesome and amazing and majestic God. Be blessed.